I forget. All right, welcome everyone. So from here today, I would like to introduce our presenters. So we have Kimberly Moore from Wichita State University, where she serves as the Executive Director for Workforce, Professional, and Community. She's a great leader in this space. And then we also have Stephanie Songer from Northern Kentucky University, who serves as the Associate Director of Online and Professional Education. So thank you both for joining us today. We're going to start by letting them each kind of share a little bit more about their programs, and then we'll move into kind of a panel discussion and lots of time for Q&A. So thanks for joining us today. To start with, I'll turn it over to Kim to share more about her program.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. As Kelly said, I'm the Executive Director of Workforce Professional and Community Education at Wichita State, and that does include our badge program. So badges at Wichita State, I think the next slide, let's advance to that. That's in our images of our badge program. These are what the digital credentials look like that students earn when they successfully complete one of our badge courses. And I always say, as many universities as do badges, there are that many ways to do them. There's such a variety of ways to look at badges. And so what we've learned through the years in higher education, especially now, is that not everyone needs a degree to be successful, but everyone does need some training. So that is why we decided to go the route of badges for professional education. So badges at Wichita State are academic short courses of 1 credit hour or less that are designed for working professionals. So they're not designed for our regular degree-bound students. We feel badges are important because it allows students to demonstrate knowledge, skills, and competencies which employers are seeking and valuing more than a degree. They're online, self-paced. And at Wichita State, there's a flexible term of enrollment where students can enroll anytime before the 60th day of the semester. So usually Thanksgiving's our cutoff in the fall, but all coursework must be completed in the semester in which it was started. Badges are pass-fail, so you get a BG badge granted or an NBG no badge granted. So they go on your official academic transcript, but do not negatively impact your GPA. Students have to achieve a minimum of 80% or better on all assignments or projects to be awarded a badge. So badges are not dumbed down education. When we first began badges, faculty were a bit resistant because they felt that we were awarding college credit and not being held to the same standards as other academic courses. But that is not true, and they require a high pass rate on all assignments. Plus, our badges meet all the requirements of the Higher Learning Commission, as well as any college or departmental accreditation requirements. For example, social work, not only do they meet HLC requirements, but our badges also have to fit within the accreditation of the department. Badges do go on in an official WSU transcript. So like other forms of continuing education on the non-credit side, which I'm also over, oftentimes there's no record of it after a period of years, but badges, there's always a record of achievement that's on your university transcript. In addition, you can share it on a smart resume, on social media, and so people know what skills and competencies you have mastered. Also, badges at Wichita State are not only for credit, but they also count towards relicensure. If you're a professional like a social worker, a nurse, or an engineer, we make sure that all of our badges meet the requirements of the licensing agency in the state so that individuals can earn hours towards relicensure as well as college credit. So they are really beneficial to professionals that are wanting continuing education to upskill. We started badges with 1 badge, and now we have around 90 in our catalog. But I always say that a good badges are not measured by quantity, but quality. And so a year ago, we did a change of direction in our badge program in order to better meet employer needs. So our first badge series that we decided to go a different direction with was our direct support professional badge series. They directly address a workforce need direct support professionals provide services to individuals with intellectual and emotional disabilities. And so it's the fastest growing occupation in the United States, but there was no formal educational pathway or recognition. So there were varying training standards, and these people are not recognized or appreciated because they aren't seen as having skills. So we decided to address a huge shortage of workers in this profession by developing a badge series. So we developed a badge series. We used as our foundation the DSP Pathways program out of Ohio, which is accredited by the National Association of Direct Support Professionals, at which we've received provisional accreditation on our own. And we provide students now with an 8-badge series where students come out with a basic knowledge of the skills required to become a direct support professional. One of the things unique and the way that this affects what the discussion is today is that we partnered with employers, governmental regulatory agencies, human resource professionals, the faculty, and the lobbying agency for this profession to develop and flesh out the curriculum for and the skills and competencies needed and sought for by employers in this area. So this was the first really collaborative effort where we brought in outside experts and validated with human resource professionals. So it was a true partnership with employers to develop these badges. And this is what the badge series looks like. There are 3 certifications, 8 badges. And so employers now, we have some employer partners that now award guaranteed interviews for people who successfully complete the badge series, and also pay increases based on each level of certification attained. So this was a really exciting project. And if you have questions about that, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, Kim, that's a great example of how you've partnered with a kind of an employer and an organization to really meet a need. So at this point, we'll turn it to Stephanie to share a little bit about their program, and then we'll move into some more discussion about tangible kind of lessons learned and ideas for how to connect with employers.
Thank you for the chance to come here today and talk about our credentials program. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our digital and credential certificate programs at Northern Kentucky University, and going to mostly focus on our micro-credentials program since that's the oldest one that we have. This one started back in 2018 and has been growing ever since. So if I could have the next slide, please. I included some URLs so that when you get this slide, you'll be able to look at some of our web pages in more detail. But just to tell you a little bit about our micro-credentials program, we think of the micro-credentials as being mini certificates. They are in very specific topic areas to really emphasize achievement of a skill set that would be helpful in someone's employment. So this is a way that someone who is maybe already employed and is looking for a promotion, or someone who wants to break into a particular career area, or just wants to make themselves more attractive as a potential employee, can demonstrate mastery of this specific skill set. We have 3 categories of micro-credentials: undergraduate and graduate. Both use 4 credit NKU courses. So these are the same courses that somebody might take as part of a degree program. And then we have professional micro-credentials. We actually only have one of those so far. Those are based on NKU courses that are not for credit. So at this time, our one professional micro-credential is based on courses taken out of our field station, and it's a wetlands management micro-credential. But vast majority are graduate and undergraduate micro-credentials. And in order to complete one of these micro-credentials, you would take between 2 and 4 courses. There's not a set number of credit hours required, but they tend to be 3 credit hour courses. One of the nice things about using the 4 credit courses and the undergraduate and graduate micro-credentials is that the courses will show up on a student's record, so they'll show up on the transcript, and enrollment in the micro-credential itself shows up as a program of study. So what we've ended up having as far as people earning our micro-credentials is kind of a mixture. Most earners so far have been people who are already students here at NKU. They're getting a little bit of an extra something to help enhance their credentials. We have a lot of adult learners, so this is a nice extra for them. We've had more NKU employees than I would have expected picking up micro-credentials. We offer tuition assistance, so they can take courses and earn a micro-credential pretty quickly. And then, of course, we have the audience who these were originally designed for, which would be people who are not currently NKU students. So this way they can come and really just enhance their credentials a little bit by earning a micro-credential. And if they want, they can stay for a degree. We hope that they stay for a degree, but it's open to really everyone. We've tried to create something with as little barriers to earning a micro-credential as possible. And then once you've completed the micro-credential and you've satisfied all of the criteria, you get a digital credential, which we use the Credly platform. There are a few different platforms out there, but this is similar to what Kim was describing, where you can share your digital credential on an electronic resume or on your social media and make a really nice kind of clickable, verifiable way of showing potential employers that you have this skill set. So this is just an overview of the different icons that we use for our various digital credentials on Credly. So going from left to right, we have the undergraduate micro-credential, the graduate micro-credential, and the professional micro-credential icons. And this is what you would see. I'll show you kind of at the end of my little blurb here what one of our digital credentials looks like. We have a new category over on the far right. You notice it looks kind of different from the others, and this is what we're using for our digital certificates. These are all based on not-for-credit courses. We're doing things like offering custom bundles of courses through places like Coursera. Sometimes those are just unique bundles of Coursera courses. Sometimes they have a hybrid component. So they're a combination of Coursera courses and interactions with our own faculty to kind of personalize things a bit more. So we're looking forward to awarding more of the the ones on the right here as we move forward. We're trying to grow really all of our credentials that way. So I included the link to the proposal form for our micro-credentials for people who are interested in creating a new one. If you'd like to take a closer look after the webinar and see really what criteria we're looking for when faculty want to come up with a new micro-credential. But just to kind of hit the high points, we're looking for accessibility, not just for our existing students, but for people who aren't NKU students yet. So, we don't want there to be a lot of prerequisites. We waive the application fee for students coming in just to earn a micro-credential. We try to make it as easy as possible to get started. The whole process starts with one or more of our faculty writing a proposal. And it just explains, what their micro-credential is going to do, what the earning criteria are going to be. And this proposal is reviewed by a committee of faculty and staff. So we try to get good representation across the university there. And in the proposal, it'll show address things like, who would the audience be? Is this something that would only be attractive to current students? Can you make a case for external learners? At what point in people's career would this be applicable, and so on? We want measurable learning outcomes. Those are always desirable. Why did you choose the courses that you chose for your micro-credential? How do you assess learning in these courses? And one of the criteria we really like to see is stackability. And Kim actually gave a good example of that with the badge system that they have, where there's a whole series that you work toward. Ours is not that sophisticated yet, although we hope to be there. But we have things like, for example, a global supply chain management micro-credential. It's made up of courses that are part of an MBA program. You can earn that micro-credential without being an MBA student or starting an MBA program, But if you earn that micro-credential and go, hey, this is really great, I think I would like to stay and earn an MBA, then you've already taken 3 or 4 of the courses required for your MBA. We have a few language micro-credentials where you have like first steps Spanish and then next step Spanish. So get you started, and then you go to a more advanced level. And then we have some really more advanced micro-credentials where it's useful to have knowledge of Spanish. So our stackability is it's desirable. It's not a requirement. One thing that we do require in the proposal is that if the courses in the micro-credential have prerequisites or co-requisites, they have to be waived to the micro-credential students unless those courses are already part of the micro-credential. So no barriers to getting started. Instructors of those courses have to agree to participate in the micro-credential program. So we don't want surprises where somebody's course gets volunteered to be in a micro-credential and they find out after they get this big boost in enrollment, like, why are all my seats filled? The courses have to be offered at least once every 3 semesters, so students can finish their micro-credential relatively quickly. And we require at least 1 letter of support from a prospective employer. So this needs to be, a business type of contact outside of the university. Ideally, they've had involvement in designing the micro-credential and coming up with the learning outcomes, because these are the skills that they want for their employees to have. And then, of course, you need to get administrative approval. So, program director, department chair, dean, and so on have all given their consent for this micro-credential to occur and agree to support it as it moves forward. And this is just one of the examples of what one of our digital credentials looks like. You can see a complete list of all of our digital credentials and certificates, the link up at the top of the slide. This is one of our more popular micro-credentials. It's trauma-focused care. This is appealing to graduate students in our Masters of Social Work program. We also get people who are already, out in their career at various stages in social work who will come back and pick up this micro-credential in trauma-focused care. So our typical, if somebody shares their digital credential, say on social media, like on their LinkedIn profile, and a prospective employer clicks on that shared digital credential, they'll see this. They'll see that it's issued by Northern Kentucky University. So we're backing up, we're verifying this micro-credential. There is a description of what the person who earned the micro-credential had to demonstrate in order to earn it. There's a set of skills that go along with that credential. These are all clickable, so the prospective employer can learn a little bit more about each of the skills, and then we have a set of earning criteria. And one of the nice things about the platform that we're using is that the earners can also use these skills to go and search for a job. So it's like, I have earned trauma-focused care. I've demonstrated this skill set. Find me job openings, that require these particular skills. So we're up to now over 50 distinct micro-credentials that we're offering. We've had over 300 earned so far since 2018. And we've had a really good acceptance rate when we issue these, about 80%. So people are ready to snap them up as soon as they've earned the digital credential and share it, usually on their social media. And we're looking forward to continuing to grow this in the future. And I look forward to getting your questions.
Kelly, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, I knew I was going to do something today. So that was a great overview and kind of gave some good context. So as people have questions, now they know a little bit more about your programs. It sounds a little bit like you both started at different points when you decided to involve employers. Maybe one of you started a little earlier. I don't know. Kim, do you want to maybe start with when did you decide to get more directly involved with those employers? You mentioned with the DSPs that it was more recently. So.
Mm-hmm. It's always been in our charge from the Kansas Board of
Mhm.
Regents, which governs all state institutions. When they approved WSU as a pilot for badges, it was always to be with a workforce focus. But in the beginning, our president at that time directed each dean to put forth 2 badges out of each of our academic colleges each year. And so we ended up with a wide variety of badges, and some of them I'm not quite sure met a real workforce need, but that's what they were set forth to do. And so I think it really came about with the pandemic and the fact that so many people left the workforce and there became some real shortages in various professions, one of them being direct support professionals. And there were people in the community that were not able to get services, huge waiting lists in the state for people to get services who have disabilities. And so, it's our job as a university to put forth education to assist our employers with filling vacancies. And so when what they don't need is somebody that's going to take 4 years to earn a degree. What they need are people that can quickly upskill or reskill to fill those positions. And that's where badges come in, because we can develop those quickly. And when I say quickly, that's in an academic world, which quickly is different than in most professions, but quicker than usual. And so we can rapidly meet the needs of the workforce. Plus, we have market-based tuition, so I can set the tuition rates for each one of our badges individually. It doesn't have to be approved by the Board of Regents. It's based on, researching the profession, talking to employers, seeing what people typically pay for continuing education. Then I can price the badges accordingly, so we can work with employers to do that. So DSPs came about, again, because there was a shortage in that area, and people were fleeing the profession during the pandemic. And so we had huge vacancies of 30 to 40% turnover each year. And it takes about 6 months to fill a vacancy. And so administrators in care facilities, Goodwill, these organizations were having to provide services, direct services. And so it became a crisis. And we had the ability to address that.
Great. I'm going to follow up with that. There was a question in the chat about is it because of the crisis that the licensing agencies were able to agree that badges could be used in their professional credentials, or has that been
No, that's
broader?
always been the case.
Okay.
Since the very first badge I developed, number 1 was in public health. So we worked with the State Board of Nursing in Kansas. We looked at their requirements, and those have measurable requirements of measurable outcomes and objectives that have to be met. They also require a certain level of education to present the education documentation of successful completion. We just went through the rules to make sure that the badges ticked all of those boxes, because we always wanted them to be able to use the badges, because a lot of these people, they don't care about college credit. Our badges are for credit, but they don't care about it. They already have degrees. If you're a nurse or you're an engineer or you're a social worker, you have a degree. And so what they need are hours for relicensure. So it was always important. And we were like Stephanie said, we always hoped that people would come and take our badges and continue on as students at the university. But then we realized there was this whole population that already had degrees that were our graduates that we needed to support. So it's kind of a 2-prong. And in for those people, we needed to make sure they could use the hours for relicensure, which was more meaningful than the credit.
Perfect. Thanks. And then Stephanie, how did your program decide to work with employers and when?
Yeah, it was really part of the Micro-Credentials program from the very beginning. It was kind of built in. I started a little bit after the Micro-Credentials program first launched. But really what was going on in the university at that time was, I guess, a recalibration of our mission statement, and really with a great emphasis on helping to get people into the workforce, keep them in the workforce and to offer, lifelong learning. So that was really essential. And it's something that is a thread that's really running through all of our continuing and professional education efforts right now. It's not always in the form of a letter of support from a prospective employer, but you want to have a prospective employer's input and ideally, have them actually help to design the learning programs. And that way, they have buy-in from the outset. And yeah, so it's baked right in.
Yeah, I think it's great that you have that letter of support as part of that, process to even propose one, because a lot of people say, "Oh, of course it's a need. We hear about it everywhere," you know? But if the employers don't know that you're going to be offering this credential, what's the good? They don't know to look for it. So I think that's a great tip for a lot of people. So if someone is new to connecting with employers and industry, if that's not usually been in their wheelhouse, both of you kind of sit in units within an institution that probably have more relationships with employers in some of the academic areas traditionally. Um, so where do you start? What's your advice to start a conversation, or where to find the employers to have that kind of beginning? So,
Well, if you don't have the connection, almost every one of our colleges, well, I know they all do have advisory boards, typically made up of employers. And so that's a good place to start there. But don't settle for the CEOs, the CFOs, the COs, or those people on the advisory boards. What you want to get to is their human resource, the hiring manager, their human resource department. The people on the front line, they're the people tasked with finding the right candidates and hiring the right people. And you need to get to but that's a good place to start, is with your advisory boards and then working towards getting to their human resource department. Other than that, in my case, I keep being approached by industry saying, hey, we have vacancies we can't fill. Can the university help us? And that's when you put together your team of a kind of a diverse team of cohorts that are involved in different parts of the process. And it's a collaborative effort of people to develop the right badges.
For Northern Kentucky, well, we have a couple of different things. So the Micro-Credentials program, it's on the faculty proposing the micro-credential to reach out and make the connection with whoever they would like to provide their letter of support. So, faculty tend to have, our faculty tend to have a lot of connections in the community, so it's rarely a problem. Some of them have multiple letters of support, which we really like to see when they submit a proposal. As far as our other programs like digital certificate programs and just raising awareness of the availability of our digital credentials, we have an office of corporate outreach and engagement, and they will engage with business leaders in the community. We're also reaching out through our alumni office, because it's like, you earned your degree here, so come back and get a micro-credential, and maybe tell the company that you work for about our many fine digital credentials programs. So we're using multiple channels to try to get the word out and get support for our programs.
yeah, that's really good. I was talking with another institution. They were talking about even going to your Chamber of Commerce events. If they have receptions, go and just be a part of the community. And, if there's an HR org or a workforce development, those are the kind of organizations you can at least start with, especially with some of the smaller businesses, if that's who's located in your area. And the other thing, it was interesting, I was talking with somebody and they're like, don't forget when you talk with employers to listen as much as you talk.
Yes, that's really important, because I found our faculty sometimes have a different point of view than what employers have. We think in higher ed that we know what's best for people, what people we think they need to know, what they need to learn. But I've been to chamber meetings, and you're right. You sit in a chamber meeting and we hear from people who say, I'm frustrated because I hire your graduates and then I have to spend a year or more to train them. They have a degree, but they don't know how to do anything. They don't have the hard skills. They have soft skills. And that's even questionable, because then they're saying these people don't know time management. They can't work in teams, la, la. And it's like, well, we're missing the boat. And then I go back to the faculty and they say, but we teach We teach critical thinking. We teach all of these time management in all of our business classes. And it's like, well, we're missing the mark somewhere. So we need to listen to employers, because what is it that we're not producing that they need?
And that's so crucial. And sometimes it's a vocabulary. I've heard that. Sometimes it's that the faculty are using one language and employers are using another. And it's the same thing, but the learner, the students don't recognize that it's the same, or there's a correlation between that. So kind of drawing concrete examples, I think sometimes helps too. And you both mentioned very good other areas of campus to make sure, there's probably someone already at your institution involved with employers, so you don't have to start fresh. I also heard from an employer that it's better to not have 10 different outreaches, but to have one coordinated. So, you don't want, and the one example, they're like, yeah, in one day I had the same institution call me from 3 different people. You don't want that to happen either. So make sure, you're not out on an island either. You've talked about bringing teams together when you work on it. So think about that. When you're working with employers, do they know what micro-credentials are, or do you have kind of a consistent elevator pitch that you use with them, or kind of what is some of the language that kind of resonates with employers? Stephanie, you're chuckling. Do you have a story?
Definitely have an elevator
Okay.
pitch. And yeah, it's something that my office shares a lot with our corporate engagement and adult learning programs of people. So I think everybody probably knows our elevator pitch by now. But that phrase that I used at the beginning, and it's something that came about from the very implementation of the program, is these are mini certificates on a specific skill set. A lot of employers haven't heard about micro-credentials, although I have found that just since I started in 2019, there is more recognition now of what micro-credentials can be, but there really isn't a standard definition of what constitutes a micro-credential. So, the micro-credentials at, Kim's institution are different from the ones at this institution. And we have, we've divvied things up between the micro-credentials and the digital certificates. And so it's all, I think, on us as the ones who are trying to get corporate buy-in and get the word out to have those definitions and really be able to explain the learning opportunities that we're offering.
And I agree with Stephanie. One of the things that we did strategically is we have a 12 badge series for human resource professionals. So we decided to educate the human resource managers and the human resource employees and organizations to badges, because they're the ones that make decisions about training, by developing their own series of badges, which we marketed. We go to the SHRM conference every year here in Kansas. We promote the badges and educate the human resource folks. And that's been very good, because then they take the badges, they understand the badges, therefore they really help us market the badges because they have an understanding of it. And so, we've also done the usual in the beginning, and we started in 2015. So many years ago, we advertised and we put information out in our local business journal. We did outreach. We had packets. All our major employers received a folder with packets of information and a letter from the president about the badges. I went to chamber meetings, and the Education and Business Alliance talked about the badges. People here have a pretty good understanding now after all of these years about badges. And so now I have employers and governmental agencies requesting badges, even when badges don't fit the project. They're like, nope, we want a badge. And I'll be like, well, it doesn't really fit our parameters, but they're demanding in some cases badges. And so it's kind of, after all these years, it's finally caught on.
That's probably reassuring to hear from most people who are listening, because they feel like they're probably earlier in the process than you. So that's great. And I love your example of, we're going to educate the HR and having that badge series, because a number of institutions have done that with faculty. They've created faculty development badges so that their faculty understand what badges are. So it makes complete sense to do it for HR. What are some of the benefits you have seen from working with those employers? There's probably too many, but why is it so important? So,
do you want to take that one first?
I will. I would say a couple of benefits with employers. And one of them is just helping to get the word out. I could really see a difference in enrollments in our program when we had, it's not an information packet, but it is a brochure. When we were able to put together a brochure that our corporate engagement folks could hand out when they speak to employers, when they go to, career fairs even. And so we still have plenty of our folks who are already students here who are interested in our micro-credentials, but that was when we really started to see people coming in who are not current students. Hey, I heard about this at my job. That's also where we're starting to get some interest for our non-micro-credential, digital certificate programs. It's from our corporate engagement folks going out and just having that conversation. Like, we will design a curriculum for you. Tell us what your needs are. So that's when that's how we get an uptick in enrollments in these programs. And we've had a few occasions where we actually get invited out to virtual, like credential fairs at different businesses in our area. And that's always exciting, when the employers ask somebody from our university to come out and talk to their employees about these continuing and professional education opportunities.
We have had success, working. It's important to work with your foundation because they have a lot of connections with employers, your deans, also your governmental relations, your lobbyists. Because we were hearing from legislators who heard from their constituents who were employers that we were not providing training. And we have so many units on this campus that provide training, but it's kind of decentralized, and there wasn't really a name to it. And there was this broad, a university is like a corporation. There are offices of people who do things. And but finding the right people that are doing the right things is challenging. And so educating those folks so that when they hear these things, when they're out talking to people, so that they could say, hey, we have an area that does that, and here's a contact for you. And employers, I think it's strengthened our relationships with employers in our community, because they know that if they have a training need, and we work a lot in the aerospace industry, and we have WSU Tech, which is the technical college branch of Wichita State, and there have been a lot. They do badges as well, and there is, like one time I think one of the companies needed 1,000 employees with a certain hard skill set. And so being able to respond rapidly and work with those employers to drill down to the exact skills needed, provide the training, and get those people on the floor has really made WSU the go-to. And of all the state institutions, we were the only one with enrollment growth for this fall. And it's because people see us as the go-to. And that trickles down into when employers who do tuition reimbursement, where they spend their dollars and what kind of continuing education they're using those dollars for. And that's where I think we come out ahead.
Yeah, those are great kind of benefits of working with employers. And enrollment is such a crucial thing, but then even more so, just meeting those needs in your community. Employers have needs for jobs, people have need to be employed or better employed, so it's great. So now that we've talked about all the great things, what are some of the challenges of working with those employers? Some of them have come up. I know, Kim, you mentioned a couple about, they want a badge, but it doesn't really fit. So do you want to touch on maybe some of those challenges that you've seen?
Sure. So one is all of our badges are for credit. And just like in Kentucky, we have badges for undergraduate and graduate credit. And so I had a governmental agency that was insistent that this training be a badge. And I was like, I don't really think it fits, but it had to be a badge. It's fine. We took something that used to be non-credit and we redid it. And so we met all the requirements for a credit course. And then we got down to enrollment. And because it's a credit course, you have to go through the application, apply, be admitted to the university, and then enroll through the registrar's office. The problem was this was for graduate credit, and some of the people in the government agency did not have a college degree. Therefore, they could not take. So we had 20 people from a governmental agency, and over half of them didn't have degrees. So that didn't work. So we had to retool it at the last minute and make it non-credit again. So there's a challenge if you're doing it for credit. Another challenge.
We might have to come back to Kim.
You're not turning out people with skills. What do they mean? We don't have people that come in with critical thinking skills. Well, critical thinking is pretty broad. So it's really challenging to get employers to define exactly what do they mean? What is critical thinking? And typically it's different in every employer's mind. The same thing with working in teams. So what kind of teams do they have? It's not so easy as a broad badge with skills, but it's okay in your situation. If you're a manufacturer, who does a team consist of, and what do they do? What are their roles? And time management, what is your workplace situation? It's really drilling down. Using broad terms doesn't really help us. We really have to drill down with employers to get to the specifics of, in their mind, what do those terms mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's so crucial because there is such a, terms and their definitions are important, and yeah, they don't understand how everything works.
And then the last thing I'll mention is timelines. Is employers, they'll call and they want the training tomorrow, today, if you can. And you go to a faculty member and they're like, can we develop that? We want to do it over spring break, summer break, Christmas break. And I'm like, no, you need to develop the curriculum now because these people need it. And so just getting people's buy-in here to create the content and recognize employers they're not students that are going to wait for something. They want it now, just in time education. That's what they're looking for. And so getting the mindset change in academic institutions to that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Stephanie, do you have any other challenges to add?
There are a few. I would say one of them that has surprised me, honestly, has been that even the letter of support from a prospective employer doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have great, numbers of micro-credential earners hired by that employer. The biggest example I have seen so far is a very interesting micro-credential that we have in primatology. So for those who would like to, study primates, and it has a letter of support from the Cincinnati Zoo, one of the highest rated zoos in the country. It's an amazing zoo, highly recommended here in Cincinnati. But we haven't had very many people earn that micro-credential, and I don't know if any of them have been hired by the Cincinnati Zoo. It makes sense looking back. I mean, how many primatologists does one zoo, even a really big zoo, need to hire every year or 5 or so? So it's not a bad micro-credential. I'm happy to see that we're keeping it. A small number of students earn it. They may go on to other zoos, around the country and around the world, but it'll probably never be one of our highest enrollment micro-credentials, and that's okay. It's just kind of surprising. I would say one of the challenges within the university has been control over our digital credentialing system, because we have very strict criteria for creating a new micro-credential. We have strict criteria for having a digital certificate. There's an approval process for both, because there is, in this kind of outpouring of goodwill, this urge on the part of some faculty to reward students for everything, to give badges for things that don't really represent a skill set, something that you can assess. So just attending a bunch of seminars, that is not badge worthy here as part of our credentialing program. So it's just exerting that control and sometimes steering people who want a badge for whatever project they have in mind. Like, no, I don't think this is the best fit for you. Here's an alternative credentialing resource, or here's an alternative type of program that you could develop. So
that's great. And that reminds me, last month we talked about the different badge taxonomies for those institutions who are struggling with that participation style ribbon versus these higher quality badges that employers want. So thank you for those. I think those are great challenges to be aware of, because people maybe, think it's all rose-colored glasses when you get an employer to say, yeah, we want these badges. And I think primatology is a great example, because you're never going to do thousands of them. And even if you have thousands of people earn the badge, there's not that many jobs in the US even that would need that. So I want to ask the attendees if there are any other questions. You've been very quiet in the chat, so if you have, now would be a great time to enter any questions you may have, or if you want to, raise your hand and or unmute yourself and ask a question, this would be a great time to do that. We'll be wrapping up shortly otherwise. While we're doing that, just a reminder that I will send out the slides and the recording out to everybody who's registered. For anybody who may have a need for that or want to share that with others, you can do that. And I see a hand raised, so feel free. I'm looking for it. Marty, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Kim, I was curious about your, you mentioned working with licensing agencies, and I was just curious about how that process went of getting the badges approved and how you kind of navigated that conversation.
Well, it's actually been not that difficult, in that the transition to online learning has really helped, and all of our badges are online. So for one thing, we made sure that our badges met the criteria. Each licensing board has a little bit different requirements as to what constitutes a contact hour. And my office handles all of the continuing education for the university on the non-credit side. And so on the credit side, we just made sure that we talked to the licensing agencies about an online environment, proving, that people are participating. That's the big thing. There's not like sign-in sheets because they're not physically there. And but we have built into our system so many discussion board contacts, and we have live faculty that interact with the students. So it's not like a MOOC where it's pre-recorded. So we can document participation, and we monitor it through the online process, making sure that when we award the contact hours, that the content and the amount of seat time, as well as the amount of work that takes place offline, equates to the required interaction of the licensing board for whatever profession it is. Like our public health badges, mainly for nursing and social workers, but they each have different requirements. So going through the measurable, making sure our objectives and outcomes are measurable and defined, and that has to be done anyway because these are for credit, and so they go through probably 30 approvals at the university, from everybody from the registrar to the director of online learning to the dean to the department chair to the instructor to me, the provost. And so really it just, I think we probably have more stringent requirements than the licensing agencies, but it's being familiar and going in and making sure that we can document and then produce, in the case of an audit, which we go through periodically, the documentation that's required to prove that we are in fact meeting the requirements for that profession.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I'm just pausing. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Just a quick reminder, One EdTech does host our Digital Credential Summit, which is 3 days of action-packed information jam sessions, much like this Digital Credentials Roundtable. We'll be hosting that in Dallas, February 27th to March 1st, and registration will open in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in attending that, please do that. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So at this point, I would like to say thank you very much, Stephanie and Kim, for sharing your knowledge and your stories and your tips for people who are kind of embarking on this journey in different points. And I think you had great examples and lessons for them to learn from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.